This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Hope you had a great weekend. Hope all you dads had great Father's Day yesterday. Man, it was a hell of a sports weekend. We've got a lot to talk about. The Cup Final moves back to Florida with the Panthers one game away from a repeat as Stanley Cup champs. Week 2's in the books in the Canadian Football League. Justin Dunk is going to join us. And lots more talk around the NHL offseason, which will officially be underway potentially as early as a Wednesday, depending on the outcome of tomorrow's Game 6 down in Fort Lauderdale. Mike McIntyre is going to pop on the program, and special guest star, none other than Sean Reynolds. Rennie is down in FLA getting ready for Game 6 of the Cup Final. He'll join us as well, and we will recap Week 2 in the Canadian Football League with Justin Dunk from 3 Down Nation. Great to have you all with us. We're also going to hear about we've got names for the Olympic teams. Well, a half dozen members of Team Canada, Team USA mentioned. We'll get to that. Maybe some of the other early preliminary rosters that have been announced today. And of course, I got to touch on the U.S. Open. You want a great underdog story? You saw it yesterday at Oakmont. JJ Spaun winning, sinking the longest putt of the entire tournament on the 18th hole in brutal conditions to win his first major. So there is a lot to get to coming up on today's program. Just before we bring in Michael Remis, welcome to everybody in chat. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already, please. Want to thank the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. Of course, our partners over at Coolbet. Princess Auto, Prairie Toyota Dealers, Ben Moss, and Rollies Transfer, St. Vital Dental Center, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, Aikens Lake and F Apparel, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, the Gold Eyes, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend Country Club. We will get to a Why Not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray, and some fan feedback on Week 2 of the Canadian Football League and the Cup Final for fansfirst.ca. Michael Remis, come on in here. How was your Father's Day, buddy?
Very nice Father's Day. Shout out to my wife, who organized a wonderful lunch at our house. We had a kid's birthday party. We had my daughter's graduation from her first year of preschool. Very exciting times, very exhausting. We sat down at the end of the day just in time to watch JJ Spaun sink the putt. JJ Spaun, whose name very familiar to me because he was here at the 2015 Players Cup, now the Manitoba Open. I believe he golfed with Brian Munz.
One of Munz's many claims to fame. Yeah,
in a media event. And I think he joined the old station right after that. And I think he led that tournament for the first day or two. It's hard to find information on the 2015 Players Cup, but congrats to him. Crazy finisher in the golf with like 5 guys tied for first, but great weekend. Watch all the CFL, Stanley Cup, a lot of in the hockey offseason. It's getting to be that time where there's just stuff flying all over the place, and we do have the Olympic first 6 for each country.
Now, you just mentioned a nursery school graduation. Like, I've heard of kindergarten graduations,
yes,
which I thought was a little over the top.
Mm-hmm.
There's now nursery school graduations. Is there, like, are we giving hospital graduations to babies when they leave the hospital for the first time right now? At what point do these grads begin for the youth of our country?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, we never had a hospital grad. We never got a certificate. Maybe the birth certificate could count. But yeah, nice little ceremony. They had some pictures looking back on the year. They gave us some projects.
Do any of the kids have any idea what's going on?
Yeah, well, I think there's some, like my daughter's in the youngest group. The kids that are older, for sure. Does she? I think so. I think she's pretty smart. She was just talking about her graduation. I think so.
Cap and gowns?
There was like a crown. I think they wore a crown. I think some of them did. The oldest kids graduated in kindergarten. It was multiple years, so I had a great time.
That is excellent. I was out at Clear Lake on the weekend. Oh man, what a beautiful golf course that was there. We did go into town to watch the game on Saturday night at the bar there, and it was a very interesting scene. I had no idea Clear Lake is like Nashville of Western Manitoba for bachelorette parties.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
It's true. I witnessed it with my own eyes. There was one bachelorette party that was there during most of the evening, like throughout the hockey game, that were just having dinner. And then once the game finished, another bachelorette party moved in. And then a third one that had, it was very clear there was a military type precision of the planning of this third bachelorette party, because they had the outfits, they all had their personalized sashes on. And this bar wasn't that big, and by about 10:30 when the band played, you had 3 rival bachelorette parties just jockeying for space in front of the band. It was something else. And then one of the bachelorette parties turned out to be part of I'm not sure what they called it, Jack and Jill or something like that. The only reason I know that is we ended up talking to a couple dudes later on the other side of the bar, and the one guy was lamenting the fact that he was on his buddy's bachelorette party, bachelor party, but the bachelorette party was there too, which basically sounded like a couple's night that just started off in different areas. So anyways, lots happening. We're not even fully into summer yet, and some of the summer spots are hopping right now. Congratulations to everyone that was involved in one of these events out in Clear Lake on the weekend. Some good laughs. And what a game, man. Brad Marchand, Remis, is taking over this Cup final. Now, Sam Bennett is right there with him, but my God, the goals that Marchand scored in that game, I mean, a very disappointing performance for Edmonton, but there is part of me that just has to hand it over and give credit where credit is due. The Panthers were already an incredible team. Seth Jones been a great ad, but my God, Brad Marchand is such a difference maker the higher the stakes get, and his fingerprints all over that game on Saturday night.
Yeah, he's really skyrocketed up the Conn Smythe power poll heading into Game 6 tomorrow, and Brad Marchand, another 2-goal game in the Stanley Cup Final, and these are 2 highlight reel goals that, yeah, you just have to tip your cap to. We're seeing 2 elite teams here, but Panthers really carrying the play, and it's going to be up to Edmonton Stars and their goaltending to try to force a Game 7. But as far as trade deadline ads go, Brad Marchand, I think it's the most goals ever by a player, added at the deadline. Could we see a Conn Smythe given to a trade deadline ad? I don't think that has ever happened.
Sam Bennett's been too good. Sam Bennett, listen, and I'm sitting, I told you, I mean, I bet Marchand at 17-1 to have the most goals in the Cup final.
Wow.
Which is looking great right now, but he's only 1 up on Bennett. Bennett has been, man, you want to talk about timing too. I mean, he's got the opportunity to go back-to-back Stanley Cup champion. He is the clear favorite to win the Conn Smythe if the Panthers do win the Cup again. And by the way, he's doing it as he enters unrestricted free agency on July 1st in one of the more shallow UFA pools we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and Brad Marchand also entering UFA year 2, a bit older, not going to have as long term, but I'm curious what he's going to get and how much he's boosted his stock. Wasn't the greatest at the Four Nations, a bit, with all those elite players, but here in the Cup final, I mean, the move that he made on that second goal, going outside in, was pretty incredible. And again, I think at the time of the trade, there was some teams being like, what? Or you're looking back now saying, what? Boston only got a conditional second, which is now first because they made the final for Marchand, but he had a no trade clause. They wanted to respect his wishes and trade him to Florida. But man, what I mean, what a deadline there with, as you mentioned, Seth Jones and Brad Marchand making impact in this series and practicing today. We have a couple days off and looking forward to Game 6 tomorrow, and hopefully we do see 7, which would be Friday.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, this series has been so good. Let's get a 7th game. But tall task for Edmonton to go out. I mean, they pulled a miracle out of their hat in game number 4. They can't get down the way they have in these last 2 games if they're going to want to get this thing back to Edmonton on home ice for game number 7. But Randy's going to join us. We'll talk more about the Cup Final. He's covering it for Sportsnet. He's going to join us a little later on. I do see Scott Westman saying Marchand will land back in Boston, I bet. I'll take that bet, Scott, because, Reem, he didn't do them any favors. He said the only place he would accept a trade to was the Florida Panthers. We've heard that Brad Marchand's looking to max out. I mean, he's been playing on a very, very cheap deal. He's 37 years old. This is his last contract in all likelihood. So, I mean, I get it. He's got his cup. He might have 2. If he's going to take a little less money, it's probably to stay in Florida with the Stanley Cup champions. But if he does get to July 1st, there will be plenty of interest in Brad Marchand. And listen, with what he's done so far in these playoffs in the Stanley Cup, I think teams will hold their nose and give a 3rd year that'll take him to 40 years old, Reem. Because right now, he's showing that not only can he still play at a really high level, but he can be an absolute difference maker in the Stanley Cup Final, which is what he's been so far. It's been pretty wild to watch, even as a guy that has spent my entire life hating on Brad Marchand.
Yeah, I know. Again, you got these Corey Perry, Brad Marchand, like guys you're just saying, man, these guys are pretty good. And as I said last week, you just got to respect them, continue to bring their game as they get towards 40. And that has been the difference in this series, depth scoring for Florida. Sam Bennett, Brad Marchand, someone mentioned, who would have thought they would have more points than McDavid and Draisaitl. McDavid did get on the board, his first goal of the series. What a beautiful one as well. But just when I thought Edmonton, was coming back, was it Sam Reinhart scores quickly? I mean, Florida just has so many guys who can score. They're tough to shut down. Bob making all the saves. It seems like we're headed towards Florida back-to-back Stanley Cup. I mean, 3 straight appearances for them in the final. But hopefully not. Hopefully this goes till Friday.
Yeah, that would be nice. Needless to say, we'll get a pulse of the Cup Final a little later on when Rennie joins us. We're also going to talk CFL on the weekend. Wrap up the weekend. Justin Dunk's going to join us a little bit later on. Bombers are practicing today, though, and we were wondering exactly how things were going to look, Reem, for practice today. Well, we can tell you that Brady Oliveira is there, but don't expect to see Brady Oliveira on the field on Saturday. We'll have an update, I'm sure, afterwards. But he was running around, not in pads. Mike Benson also hurt, the long snapper. They have signed a new long snapper, a guy that was in camp, to come in and take his place for the time being. So Zach Collaros is out at quarterback. Matthew Paterson at running back. Gabe Wallace at left guard. And as DT mentioned, this is going to change the ratio this week. I'll just read what he said. Watching for the ratio change that the Bombers will make with Oliveira's injury. Could be receiver, maybe more likely it's at left guard. They'll certainly bring running back Quentin Cooley on. We talked about him with Jeff last week. So an American will have to come off. And again, Collaros at QB, Paterson running back, Gabe Wallace at left guard, and no changes to the Bombers' defense in the first period. That's always good news, according to DT. And when you think about the level the Bomber defense was at on Thursday night, Remo, in front of that sold-out crowd at Princess Auto Stadium, no surprise that Jordan Younger's unit is not looking to make any big changes, just looking to build off a great performance against Nathan Rourke and that Lions O.
Yeah, they put some pressure on Nathan Rourke, and he left with injury, so we're waiting to see his update as well and availability for Saturday. But interesting with the Bombers, getting their first, their 2 games with BC out of the way the first 2 weeks of the season. Usually like to have some real important divisional matchups toward the end, but this is how the schedule is this year. And I know there's some people poo-pooing the Bombers win because, BC was on a short week and the Bombers had the bye in week 1. But hey, tell that to the odds makers who still had BC as a 3-point favorite. The Bombers won handling. Nathan Rourke, he did get some points, but the Bombers held him in check, created turnovers, got pressure. Well, they only did get, I think it was the Kyrie Wilson sack, but great performance by the defense. And again, DT, I talked to DT last week, play-by-play voice of the Bombers, telling me that the Bombers, he thinks that they're better this year than last year, and still easy to feel disappointed about last year's Grey Cup, but I think this year's team makes you feel, good about going forward in the Grey Cup here. However, when you watch this weekend's games and you see Nick Arbuckle's first 2 for Toronto this season, Hester, where was that last November in BC?
Arbuckle, listen, the clock struck midnight for Arbuckle and that Cinderella story. Hey, got him a new contract. We might not even see him start next week. I mean, we'll see what Dunk has to say about the Argos. And they're at number 9 on the 3 Down Nation power poll this weekend. I'm not sure if I'd put them that far down, but they're in a tough spot. Riders are 2-0 after their win against Hamilton. The Stamps are 2-0 after their win in Toronto. Bombers undefeated, albeit 1-0, having played 1 less games. And the East is Montreal at 2-0. Everybody else still looking for their first win. So we'll dive into a CFL segment later on with Dunk. And tomorrow on WST, the latest edition of CFL 110 with myself and Jeff Hamilton. Looking forward to that. Remo, let's get to, and again, we're going to pop into this topic with Sean and certainly with Mike a little bit later on. But July 1st is looming large. We have been waiting for potentially good news on the Nikolai Ehlers front, and it has not come. And there was an update for Winnipeg Jet fans wondering what is the latest on Nikolai Ehlers. And Elliot Friedman dropped this nugget, I believe, from 32 Thoughts. Here's the latest on the Ehlers situation from Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet.
As other names have come off that list, Nick Ehlers becomes more and more potentially valuable should he reach July 1st. Where are you at with him? Is he another guy where you're thinking he's testing the market?
Yeah, to me, I'm hearing in the same boat as Marner. It's that he's going to go to July 1st, and then we'll see. Nobody's confirming that he's actually given Winnipeg an absolute no or anything like that. But there's definitely a feeling out there he's going to July 1, and he's going to see what's out there. So it's a similar situation.
All right, so here's the thing, Reem. If Nikolai Ehlers gets to July 1st and sees what's out there, I think he's going to see there's a lot of money out there right now. And I think he's going to see there's a lot of teams that are interested in his services. And I really don't like the Jets' chances on pulling a rabbit out of their hat post July 1st. I mean, to me, if this was going to happen, there was going to be, some meetings, some conversations behind the scenes, and we were going to find out that, he had either accepted an 8-year deal with the Winnipeg Jets to stay here and, like Mark Scheifele and probably Connor Hellebuck, be Jets for life. But unfortunately, the more we read into this, I think it's going to be a really, really tough battle for the Winnipeg Jets to win on the open market with Nikolai Ehlers. He has absolutely earned his right to see what's out there. And considering, as we've talked about, I mean, you got Marner, you got Bennett, potentially John Tavares. It's not a long list of truly impact players. I mean, Brock Besser's in there. We could be talking about a very massive hole in the Winnipeg Jet lineup if Nikolai Ehlers signs elsewhere. And it's looking more and more likely by the day that that's the case.
Yeah, by all accounts, heading to July 1, going to see what is out there. And yeah, I think the Jets' track record in free agency brings up memories of, they tried to get Sean Monahan last year, try to convince him to stay. Paul Stastny, after the 2018, he went with Vegas. We'll see what's out there for Nikolai Ehlers. And if he does leave, I agree. That's the biggest question for me. How are they going to replace his scoring? What rabbit does Kevin Cheveldayoff have because free agency hasn't really been an avenue for them to improve their team. They have made some good signings. Matthew Perreault comes to mind, but Olli Jokinen, wasn't that a free agent signing?
2 years, 2 years, I think 4.5 per for Oli. And that was pretty significant money at that point. Listen, I mean, the unrestricted free agents that have their pick of the litter often, I mean, listen, they probably wouldn't consider Winnipeg at all unless the team was good. And the team has been really good for the last couple of years. So, I mean, I think that is... So, I mean, you would hope that gives you a better chance to re-sign your own guys. And I think that has been something the Jets have taken advantage of. But with everything being so quiet all year on Nick, and again, Nick's a pretty private guy. Like, we brought up many of the things that could play into this. Nick's role on the team, Nick's ice time, all of that, the money that's available. But it's all really been speculation by everyone. Nothing's ever really come from Ehlers or the agent. And, I mean, listen, I'd love to sit there and tell you that, Nick is, really likes Winnipeg and really likes being with this team and just wants to do his due diligence. I think that would be a bit of a pipe dream right now. There are a lot of teams that I think covet Nikolai Ehlers, can maybe promise him a greater role. I'm not sure, depending on who's in it, if they can offer him a better chance to win in the short term. But the fact of the matter is, if Nick Ehlers is no longer here, in my opinion, that really does affect the Jets' opportunity to stay at the level that they're at. And it puts a major thing at the top of Kevin Cheveldayoff's to-do list, and that's replace Nick Ehlers' production, which is a hell of a lot easier said than done. Whether you're talking UFA, whether you're talking trade, whether you're talking through your own organization, Ehlers just does so many things for the Winnipeg Jets that even his critics, I think, are going to be missing in large fashion if the season gets going underway and Nick Ehlers is playing elsewhere.
Yeah, the other free agent player is missing that left in free agency, Michael Frolik. I remember Kevin Cheveldayoff not happy with that, how that ended up, him leaving to Calgary. And yeah, we were already talking about how they need a second line center. Well, now you would need a second line winger. And we saw what he did for the power play as well last year and what it looked like when he was injured. I'm trying not to think about this. I'm ready to cross this bridge when we get there, but it was a great stretch here for Nikolai Ehlers with the Winnipeg Jets, but it seems like both sides ready to move on, and that's going to be something we'll be talking about as we head into July 1. And will we see any trades? Will the Jets deal their first-round pick? Will they deal any prospects? Signing players has been an issue, but keeping players here, as we've seen Nino Niederreiter sign, Nemestikov sign, Iafallo sign, that hasn't really been a problem, but just getting them here first, probably going to be some deals will have to be made.
Yeah. Listen, it's not over till it's over, but this is a report that I don't think gave a lot of people confidence that 27 will be continuing in Winnipeg. We'll see what Randy thinks and Mike a little bit later on. Tyler Sattler in chat. Great coincidence running into you at the competing bachelorette bar in Clear Lake House, LOL. That was quite the scene. Apologies, listening behind live. Tyler was out there for, they had a craft beer festival as well, which spilled into the festivities later on. It was quite the weekend. Listen, Randy's going to join us in just a couple minutes. Let me thank our friends at Rolly's Transfer for their support of WST. Folks, if you got a move coming up this summer or fall, lean on our friends at Rolly's. They've been family-owned and operated and the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba for over 60 years. Got a great website at Rollies.com, and in the top right corner, you can click on Request an Estimate. Put in the promo code WST for 100% of, for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. And then let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to be moved. They'll turn it around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that they have been famous for now into their 7th decade. For all your moving needs, make it Rollies. You might even get that beautiful Winnipeg Sports Talk truck to move your stuff. Find out more, request an estimate today over at Rollies.com. Hey, listen, the kids I know are finishing school very soon if they haven't already, and it's about time for the summer. The one thing you don't want to be dealing with during the summer is having to come back in from the lake for dental appointments. Why don't you just head on down to St. Vital Dental Center now and get it all taken care of before the summer's truly underway. Of course, Dr. Terry and his gang have been serving generations of Winnipeggers in the St. Vital area for a long time. And now they've got their beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's with state-of-the-art equipment, free parking right in the back. And listen, they'll take care of customers from 6 months all the way to 99 plus, doing everything from cleanings and checkups to things like dental implants. So for all your dental needs, St. Vital Dental Center, great sponsors of WST. You can head on over, make an appointment, and find out more at stvitaldental.ca. Man, the Canadian Club Reserves were tested once again at Princess Auto Stadium on Thursday night. What a start to the year. What a game. What an atmosphere. What a crowd. And of course, what a beverage, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Canadian Club. And not only is that available, but the new club pack with their 3 ready-to-drink coolers, Canadian Club and Ginger Ale, the CC Citrus Smash, the half and half. Pick that up as well for your next weekend gathering. If you haven't tried them, you will absolutely love them. The new Canadian Club 12 packets, all available at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And hey, Manitoba Battery's ready for the summer. Folks, if you haven't got that camper on the road yet, or you're planning on getting out with that boat, you can't wait to work that Sea-Doo, your ATV, you got to have batteries for it all. And Manitoba Battery is your local option where you will shop local and get the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores. You can save up to $50 a battery on things like for your boat or for your camper. As Donnie says right on the right on the site, wake up Winnipeg, stop overpaying for batteries, save up to $60 with us, and you can see some of the comparisons elsewhere. Now, you can give them a call to place your order. You can order online at manitobabattery.com because they will be happy to deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the city of Winnipeg with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. A Manitoba Battery, 2 locations as well. Logan Avenue, the original, and the new spot, Dovercourt Drive, in the south end of the city. All right, we're going to check in with our pal Sean Reynolds, who is covering the Cup Final from beautiful, sunny Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Looking forward to talking to him about the show Brad Marchand and the Cats put on in Edmonton on Saturday night and tee up tomorrow's, and we'll certainly get Rennie's thoughts on Oilers, and I'm sure he's probably talking with a lot of the national media running around as our national media guy, as he were. So we'll get to all of that in a minute. Just as we bring in Sean, this segment's brought to you by our Prairie Toyota dealers who want to remind you to get in and go with the Toyota Tundra. Quality that means it has the strength to take on any challenge, off-road or hauling a heavy load, and it's backed by the peace of mind knowing it's a Toyota. So take the road less traveled in comfort, room for teammates, friends, and gear. And can we talk about how good this truck looks? Anywhere it goes, it can turn heads. Saw a couple beautiful Tundras out at Clear Lake on the weekend. Available now from $154 weekly for 60 months at 5.39% APR with $71.99 down. Hybrid options available as well. Find out more and visit shoptoyota.ca. All right, down to the Sunshine State ahead of Game 6 of the Cup Final we go. Our good friend Sean Reynolds of Sportsnet and Kenny and Rennie fame joins us now. Ren, what's going on? How's life on the road for the Cup Final treating you?
It's starting to feel like it's close to winding down. Haven't been in Winnipeg for a while, and while the weather here is great, I hear there's been some decent weather in Winnipeg back there that I'm missing out on. So looking forward to getting back, but always happy to close out the NHL year at the Cup Final.
Take us back to Saturday night. I mean, I know most people watch the game depending on where they were. I was out on the west side of the province and, kind of taking it in with a bunch of friends. And, like the excitement, the hype going into that Game 5 was such a big game. One team played like it, the other one not so much. A real disappointing outing for the Edmonton Oilers, I thought.
Yeah, I've covered 2 conference finals and 2 cup finals now in Edmonton, and that's a building that the fans earn their keep, no doubt. That, of all the games that I've covered there in the playoffs, was the one where they just really seemed to take the crowd right out of that for the vast majority of the game. And you nailed it, right? Like the one thing I think we've seen in this series so far, you go back to last year, there's an argument that the Edmonton Oilers, they didn't win the cup, but there's an argument they were the better team in that series. Game 1, a couple of things don't go their way, some goaltending issues or whatever's happening. And it kind of goes against you. And then in games 4, 5, and 6, they absolutely dominate the series. And then you get to game 7, and it's a matter of one play, one goal is the difference in that game. We talked about, we kept hearing about how this is maybe the most hotly contested series we've ever seen before. It's not kind of shaping up that way in my estimation. Like if you take a look at the number of periods that the Florida Panthers have dominated in this cup final, it's not even close. And we think we've seen that signature Edmonton Oilers game. We saw a signature Edmonton Oilers period in the second period of that game 4. And we've seen them, pull off the comebacks that they've been able to pull off over and over again. But this has been, 2 opposing styles of teams, and it's been played in the Florida Panthers vein for the vast majority of this series. This series could be over right now, Huss, the way things are going. Edmonton Oilers, pulled a couple of rabbits out of their hat and a little bit of Dean Gunnarsson escapism in this series.
Great reference. Great reference.
Yeah. But right now, this is Florida Panthers playing Florida Panthers hockey on their way to a lead, and the Edmonton Oilers with their backs against the wall, looking to find their game this deep into the series.
Listen, the Oilers certainly got off to a better start than they did last year, getting down 3-0. But, what stands out to me, Sean, watching these games, is that the Panthers already were the team to beat. They added Seth Jones, who's been a real night, and he's played some of the best hockey of his career at times during these playoffs, certainly Game 7 against the Maple Leafs. But the impact that Brad Marchand is making is, we shouldn't be surprised, but he is 37 years old. He's with a new team. He's come in and been everything the Florida Panthers could have possibly hoped for and more, and is now playing some of his best hockey at the most important time. And what a show he put on in Game 5.
Yeah, we shouldn't be surprised that one of the all-time playoff performers is performing in the playoffs. We should be surprised how he's doing it. If Brad Marchand was 27 and doing what he was doing right now, we should be surprised. The kind of goals he's scoring, the timeliness of those goals, the way he's popping up at the biggest moments are moments reserved for the biggest names in the game. If Connor McDavid was scoring the goals that Brad Marchand is scoring right now in this series, you'd maybe not be surprised. If it was Leon Draisaitl, maybe. But you take all the best players in this series and have them popping up at this moment, doing it that way, the kind of single-handed throw this team on my back, I'm going to get us over the line kind of goals and plays that Brad Marchand is consistently pulling off. There's a handful of guys in the game that you would not be surprised they were pulling it off. Doing it at 37 the way he is, we should be surprised at the way he's doing this. But man, what a gamer. There's a lot of people out there, people in Winnipeg, I don't think have a built-in hate towards Brad Marchand, because it's not your team that he's burnt over and over again over the years. But this is a guy that a lot of fan bases despise. And he's hard not to love. I love the question that he answers after Game 5, where it's like, hey, if an early 20s Brad Marchand could see Brad Marchand today and what he's doing, what would he say? And his response is, wow, that guy's good looking. Like the whole thing with the ice cream and everything, like the most likable guy in hockey right now. The way that he's responding to this, it's you just can't help but sit back and enjoy a guy who's turning himself into an all-timer in front of our eyes go to work.
Hey, I meant to ask you this. I mean, as one of the media covering the final, do you get a Conn Smythe vote?
I don't know. No.
Well, just on that topic, like Sam Bennett is the favorite. And listen, he's leading. He's got 15 goals. He's got 22 points. Marchand is 10-10, but he has 10 in the Cup final, albeit Bennett has 4. Like, it's not like Bennett hasn't been right there with them. But is there any circumstance you could see where Brad Marchand actually leapfrogs Bennett to win the Conn Smythe Trophy with what Bennett's done since the start of the playoffs?
Okay, if you take a look at the moments where the Florida Panthers were in the most trouble in this playoff run, you're talking about Game 3, overtime against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He doesn't score that game-winning goal in overtime, and the Maple Leafs do. They're down 3-0. They're probably not here. Right? You take a look at if Edmonton goes up 2-0 in this series, there's a good chance that, we're coming here and it's either 3-2 or maybe somehow the ball gets rolling for the Edmonton Oilers and they close this out. So him scoring in Game 2 overtime, that's key. Him doing what he did in Game 5 is the difference in this series right now. Can I see a circumstance? I'm saying this, if I did have a vote, he would have my vote. What said the body of work is greater for Sam Bennett, but the biggest moments of the playoffs have been owned in spectacular one-man band fashion by Brad Marchand. For me, it would be close, but he would have my vote the way things are going right now. Outside of, they've got one more game to close it out. If they win it, Sam Bennett would need to be pretty special in that game to turn the tide for me right now, but it's within reach for him. But yeah, I mean, anyone who tells you that a vote for Brad Marchand would be crazy or a bad vote, they haven't been watching the biggest moment.
He's the only other guy in the conversation.
Yeah.
And it's not like Bennett had all of his goals in the first couple rounds. Like, he's got 4 goals in the Cup final as well.
Yeah, he's been
Marchand has 5 right now. I think that Marchand has to be taken a little more seriously because of what you mentioned. I mean, overtime. And I mean, dude, those 2 goals that he scored on Saturday night, I mean, highlight reel, like goals that you very rarely see at any point, even in the regular season. And to do that in the Cup final, that much more. I mean, I feel dirty giving Marchand this much praise just because of the guy that he is, but listen, credit where credit is due, and he's getting it. Listen, the Oilers, for their side of things, I mean, listen, I picked Edmonton in 7 at the beginning of this series.
Yeah.
And I really felt that these were 2 very, very good teams. The margin between winning and losing would be really small. And I say, you know what? I'll roll with the Oilers in Game 7. They'll have home ice, and they've also got the 2 best players. I'm not sure that those 2 best players have been the best players in this series. You've been there, and what do you make of? Listen, Draisaitl has 2 OT winners. I mean, it's pretty hard to give him a hard time, but we haven't maybe seen that McDavid game yet so far in this series. I mean, what are you feeling about the Edmonton side of things, and in particular, the most important players in their lineup?
Yeah, I mean, Leon Draisaitl has been the Brad Marchand. He's been there in big moments, right? He's got the overtime winner in Game 1. He's got the overtime like that. He's the guy who gets them over the line in those 2 games. So I think Draisaitl's done his thing for his part. Connor McDavid, I don't think that he's been terrible. I mean, like that one setup that he does in Game 2 with Leon. I mean, that's all time. It's the nicest play of the playoffs. He kind of started the spark. If there was going to be the Reinhart goal in that last game, that makes it 4-1 after McDavid scores, and you see Corey Perry scores later. If they don't come back and score that goal right away, we're probably talking about a real tense last couple minutes of the game, and who knows, the juice may get going to the point that you see them come back in that game. So Connor McDavid, I would never look at it and say like they're losing because of him, but I'll say this. There's a lot of guys out there who win Stanley Cups because they're the right piece on a really good team, right? There's so many names on the Stanley Cup. So many of those guys are just guys who found themselves in the right place at the right time. And then there's a handful of guys who go up and they are key and central to winning Stanley Cups. And so rightfully or wrongfully, I don't put it on Connor McDavid where they are in this series right now, but We just finished talking about Brad Marchand, and Brad Marchand has gone out and found a way to be a difference maker, found a way to do amazing things at amazing times. There has to be another level to Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid's game if they are going to come back and win these last two games, because they do not have the depth that the Florida Panthers do. Like, you take a look at the two most dominant games of this Cup final. Game 3, the most dominant game, I thought, for the Florida Panthers. And in that game, their first line combined for 4 points. Their second line combined for 4 points. Their third line combined for 4 points. That is like depth, evened out scoring right up and down the lineup. You are not going to get that from the Edmonton Oilers. You're not going to get Adam Henrique's line going out, combining for 4 points tomorrow night. I don't see it happening, and I don't see it happening with the second line and the first line. And there's far too many times in this series that they've needed to go to the nuclear option of Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. Listen, you go nuclear because it does the most damage. If you go nuclear and you're not getting damage done, the team's not going to get the job done. So as it stands right now, those guys have to reach another level. It has to be one of those games where they combine for 6 points in a 3-2 victory or something like that, and then they get it back to Edmonton, and who knows what happens in Edmonton. But you're right. They haven't had their Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl moments enough in this series. Has to happen here if they're going to move on.
The goaltending carousel in Edmonton has been so fascinating for a team that it's right there. It happened last year. Skinner loses the job. He gets it back. He loses it. He's back. Stewie Skins in for game 6, do you think? Like, is this going to be his series to win or lose moving forward?
Oh, yeah. I have no doubt in my mind that it will be him. And I thought it was a little bit, I guess when you make that move that they made in game 4 of this series, you're kind of committed to that. Pickard comes in, it gets a spark. It's the defibrillator to the team. And so you can't go away from that. But let's be honest with ourselves. It wasn't Stuart Skinner's fault that they ended up in that hole. I mean, I don't like how he plays the first goal. But other than that, his team just fails to arrive in the first period. They get down 3-0. It's not on him. And I'll say this, I'll say this, Hush, to make this a little bit of a Winnipeg conversation having to do with the Oilers. I've been fascinated watching Stuart Skinner go through the process that he's gone through in the way that it compares to the Hart-winning, Vezina-winning trophy Connor Hellebuyck in Winnipeg, because their approaches are entirely the opposite. Where for years you got out of Connor Hellebuyck, I liked my game, everything's fine, nothing's going on here. Stuart Skinner is the exact opposite. He's vulnerable. He's open to talking about his issues. He bleeds out his pain in front of you in the media. It's just the exact opposite of the robotic, not really give you anything approach of Connor Hellebuyck, who doesn't speak barely in a series, whereas you've got Stuart Skinner. If he goes tomorrow, I'll tell you this, he's talking to the media tomorrow because he talks on game days to everybody. I've thought the approach is really fascinating, and that what we see from Stuart Skinner is a guy who's constantly falling, assessing falling, talking to you about it, and finding a way to show up and perform again, versus a Connor Hellebuyck who seems unable to. And I want to be clear on this. I think Connor Hellebuyck finally started getting to that this year, and I think it's going to serve him well next year in the playoffs. I think Connor Hellebuyck's going to be a different goalie because he actually started taking a little bit of the Stuart Skinner approach this year, where he came out and he talked with us and he bled out a little bit and he showed his pain and his vulnerability. And I think what he did in that was he opened the closet and finally took a look at the skeleton, and it's going to play him well. Geez, Stuart Skinner walks around with that skeleton with his arm around his shoulder for the entirety of the playoffs. And because of it, he's a guy that I've come to expect in moments like tomorrow night. He will be there, and you'll at least get the best of what he has to offer.
Hey, you just mentioned this, Ren, and I about Connor Hellebuyck and his playoffs, and it was brought to my attention today that and you remember it with Scott Arniel after the series. He mentioned, there was a lot of talk about Scheifele and obviously the passing of his father before Game 6, and
yeah.
He alluded to there was more to that, not that particular, but they were dealing with more of it. It was interesting to find out today that I believe Connor Hellebuck's father-in-law passed away during the St. Louis series.
Yeah.
We saw that out. And listen, that's not, I think, something that anyone reports or really talks about until, it's out there in public. But, when I saw that, it brought me back to that comment from Scott Arniel that, and listen, I mean, they won the series. They found a way to battle back. I mean, he had that big bounce back after giving up a couple in game number 7.
Yeah.
But I think it maybe is a little bit of a window into some of the things happening around the team and with Connor during that St. Louis series where he wasn't himself at times.
Yeah, you know what? We get used to players doing these superhuman things, especially top-notch players like Connor Hellebuck. And what we do is we fall for the idea that these players are superhuman and that they process things better than the normal person or handle those kind of things, in a different way. This to me was a real wake-up moment for hockey fans out there, media, whoever. But we had this lesson in Winnipeg a number of years ago when Josh Morrissey went into the bubble that year, and we didn't know that he had basically had to say goodbye to his dad, who was suffering from terminal cancer. Josh had to make the decision to leave, go into the bubble that he couldn't escape, or if he did, he couldn't get back into it, knowing that it may be the last time he saw his dad. And that year there was a lot of critics of Josh Morrissey and his game and how he was playing. And later on, we find out that this is what he's been dealing with that whole time. These players are human. They have people they love and people they care for. And when things like that happen to the people that they love and care for, it has an effect on them. So yeah, it's just a reminder that these players are like you and I. They hurt, they feel, and they process, and that process can take away from their overall performance.
Ren, one of the great things, and thanks again for jumping on during a busy Cup Final run, is having you kibitzing with the national media. Of course, your colleague, Elliot Friedman, best in the game, talking about the Nikolai Ehlers situation today on 32 Thoughts. We just played the clip earlier. Seems like it is being reported that Nikolai Ehlers is going to see what is out there on July 1st. Just want to get your thoughts on the Ehlers watch and what you make of this report and how you see things going once the rest of the National Hockey League has the opportunity to flash bags to Ehlers and his representative come the 1st of July.
Well, it's so interesting when you look at these things, how much external factors end up playing on this. I'll use a great example, another Winnipeg-centric example. A lot of the writers who I was down here talking to who voted on the Hart Trophy, a lot of them, their deciding factor that switched their vote from Leon Draisaitl to Connor Hellebuck was Leon Draisaitl being injured at the end of the year and missing that swath of time. There was a lot of people who were on a knife's edge and it fell that way. And I remember at the time having conversations with Ken on our podcast about the idea that I thought, I don't know whether or not Connor Hellebuck is going to a guy like sorry, am I back in here, guys? Or
you just popped out. You were,
you just Nathan McKinnon fell out of it. Kucherov jumped up and took over the lead. Like all these kind of things, the check box, the checks in the boxes for each player kind of all shifted at the last minute. And so people who had been arguing for one player, a big plank of what they were arguing for got taken away at the last minute or something like that. So the conditions I thought lined up really well for Connor Hellebuck, and it was confirmed to me in talking with a lot of people that there was a lot of people who switched their vote at the last minute. So those conditions lined up well. The conditions this year for Nikolai Ehlers are, with the UFA class not being the deepest, with the fact that we get a huge jump in the ability for teams to pay for players this year, it would be kind of crazy in any circumstances for Nikolai Ehlers not to go out and throw his services out there and have the bidding war that is going to ensue. On top of that, there's a lot of teams that need a player like that. And, you talked about me talking with all the national media guys. I know I talked to one today specifically who said they know the team that they cover is going to go really hard after Nikolai Ehlers. I've heard that in a number of different markets. I've heard a lot of people talking about a lot of Western teams. I think there's a little bit of a Mitch Marner domino falling effect to this, that when we find out where he goes, a lot of people are going to switch and turn quickly. So there's the first wave of people who just want a player like Nikolai Ehlers. There's the fact that the cap went up that makes it so that he can make a very big sum of money. And then there's the idea that, hey, the second wave could be even stronger than the first wave on this, depending on which way Mitch Marner goes. And that all just lines up to different, like a lot of chances for Nikolai Ehlers to be able to pick a really great situation and pick a lot of money. And I know a lot of people talk about him staying in Winnipeg. The one thing that stands out for me with Winnipeg is we've talked about this 2C issue for years, right? And the Jets just can't seem to figure it out. And no one has probably been affected by that more than Nikolai Ehlers, right? I said this before, he's been a top 6 player on the Jets for almost a decade. And he's played with Mark Scheifele a tiny fraction of that time. So you're sitting there in the top 6 and you're consistent 1C. You've got 2 centers in your top 6. The one guy who's consistently there you've almost never played with. What that means is, as the Jets have had trouble filling that 2C, Ehlers, who is sitting and waiting for them to solve that problem still hasn't been solved. And so maybe you go out and maybe you grab Jonathan Toews before everything starts, and then maybe you can turn and say, okay, we've got a guy for you now. Although Jonathan Toews, we all know, you're not sure what he's going to look like. Is that the problem solved? We don't know that. Nikolai Ehlers, to me, more than anything, gets to look around and say, I get to go to a team that I think is going to use me how I want to be used, and I've got options up the middle to play with 2 different guys, because the Jets have shown him over the years that it's not an option to put him up with Mark Scheifele. So they have to find a 2C that he's sold on, and for a long time, and they haven't been able to do that. So I think one of the conditions that I'm talking about that are lining up to push him out of the market are that for Nikolai Ehlers, who has not been used alongside a guy like Mark Scheifele and who has sat back and waited for them to fix that 2C role that they haven't really been able to fix, he gets to look around the league and say, I'm going to be a top 6 with that team. They've got 2 different centers that I think I'd play really well with, and there's a good chance they're going to use me with either of them. That's a pretty appetizing offer for a player who's been sitting around waiting for that guy in Winnipeg for a long time and not been used with the other guy for the entirety of his time here.
Yeah, and again, I mean, like I'm here for that. I understand why people say that. We've never heard anything like that from Ehlers or his agent, but it's hard to ignore. Do you think there's any chance? Because I do think the Jets still hope that they might be able to convince him to stick around. If they don't say unequivocally, we're not coming back, but we want to hear the pitches on the 1st of July, I would imagine, Sean, that probably rules out the Jets trading his rights in advance of July 1st to give some other team the inside track on signing him before unrestricted free agency begins?
Yeah, I don't see it happening. I mean, maybe what you do is, like we keep hearing, even in the Marner situation, I keep hearing about people talking about, well, maybe it's a sign and trade, because that's how you make the most money. And if that's what you're looking for, okay, we like this team. If you go out actively as a GM and say, okay, this is what I'm hearing teams are going to offer you, we can give you that 8th year, facilitate that 8th year and do a kind of sign and trade here. When you get to this point, though, I mean, the question becomes, what are the Jets going to get back in that scenario? And what does a team really want to give up, rather than saying, look, we'll just try and find another way to make it up to you with bonuses or something like that, so that we're not losing guys off our roster to pick the guy. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I do think that if the Jets were going to sign Nick, the one thing that they have that other teams don't have is the ability to give that 8th year. Yeah. And, at this point at his age, I mean, would the 8th year be a nice carrot that the Winnipeg Jets could do if the money was the same elsewhere, add that extra year? I think that would be significant. But the bottom line is the minute you get to July 1st, that 8th year is off the table, Sean.
Yeah, I just think teams are pretty creative now. They know how to add, bonus and incentive and things like that. And I mean, geez, if he goes to, I don't know that it's going to happen, but if he goes to one of these tax markets, tax-free markets, if he finds himself in Vegas or down here in Florida or something like that, that's a whole other factor involved in this. So I think it's big, the 8th year, but honestly, I have thought since the beginning I think Scott Arniel did the best possible job he could have, Huss, of showing Nikolai Ehlers what life could be like in Winnipeg, where they prioritize him. More so than they had in the past. I'm a big believer that they have not used Nick Ehlers to the full complement of his abilities for the entirety of the time that he's been here. So I think Scott Arniel did as good a job as he possibly could. There's still that 2C role, and I can tell you right now, I know Nikolai Ehlers has felt the maybe a little bit of the question of, why am I not being used? Why do I not get to go up and play with Mark Scheifele every once in a while? Listen, the Jets are a different team than most teams, where they've had this number one line locked up and they find it and then they lock into that, and that's it. Those three guys play together and it's not changing. And every once in a while, they'll use it to spark things. But if you're Nikolai Ehlers at this stage, even as good a job as Scott Arniel did this year, the message is clear. You don't get to play on the first line. That's never going to happen, okay? You're a second-line player, and until that 2C role is solved, that role always looks a little bit iffy. I know it's not vastly reported. I'm telling you right now, Nikolai Ehlers has dwelled on that and thought about it, and it's part of the decision that he's going to be making going forward.
Rennie, great stuff as always. Thanks so much for doing this. Heading down to the elbow room shortly, or what's the rest of the day before the big game?
Oh boy, you're trying to expedite the process here, like everyone else who keeps texting me. You know what I mean? But it's probably we know it's the last night in down in Florida here. So who knows? There may be some shenanigans to be had.
Hey, buddy, appreciate you. Thanks for doing this. We'll see whether you're coming on a plane to Winnipeg or further west after tomorrow night's game. Travel safely. Enjoy Game 6. It should be a doozy.
I appreciate you, Huss. Thanks for having me.
Right on. There's Sean Reynolds. Looking missing he and Ken doing Kenny and Rennie's during the playoffs, but obviously busy, and I really appreciate him jumping on with us today. Let's do Why Not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray in the chat. Very simply, will Nikolai Ehlers be a Jet next season? Where are you at on that? Vote yes or no in the poll right now. We'll get to feedback coming up in a bit for fansfirst.ca, but there's the Why Not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Man, Princess Auto Stadium was rocking on Thursday night. What a win for the Bombers. They're on the road this week in BC and then back at it on the 26th to take on the Edmonton Elks. Princess Auto, of course, founded in Winnipeg, headquartered in Winnipeg, and proudly supporting your Winnipeg Sports Talk. And, of course, your Winnipeg Blue Bombers is the home of the squad. Now, Princess Auto has 3 locations in Manitoba where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete those projects on your list or start something new is waiting for you over at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them in store or shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. I'm counting down the days to get out to Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge with Wayne, our auction winner from the HSC Foundation program we did earlier this year. Man, that's going to be fun. If you're thinking about a world-class fly-in fishing experience where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens Lake is that spot. And as incredible as the fishing is, the hospitality from the Aikens team and the Turenne family may be even better. Head on over to aikenslake.com for information and availability and options on the 2025 fishing season. And make sure to check out their socials at Aikens Lake for more on what the Aikens experience is all about. And hey, I know I was just talking about all those bachelorette parties we saw on the weekend. Well, that means weddings are coming up. And fellas, with wedding season here, if you're looking into your closet and realize you need to up your menswear game, get on down to F Apparel at 190 Smith Street. Custom suits beginning at $400, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, the best selection of menswear accessories in town. And of course, if you are in a wedding party or planning on having one, make sure to talk to the fellas at F about a special discount when the fellas get their suits for the big day over at F Apparel. It's all there for you. Online, fepapparel.com. You can find out more information or book yourself in to come in for a fitting. All right, we're going to bring in Mike McIntyre right now. And this segment with Mike is brought to you by Ben Moss. Ben Moss, proudly Canadian-owned and operated with history dating back more than 100 years with 3 locations in Winnipeg. You can find them at Polo Park Shopping Center, St. Vital Center, and Kildonan Place. Committed to customer satisfaction, check out a large selection of Canadian mined diamonds, lab-grown diamonds, and mined diamonds available with payment plans to suit your need. For more information, check out benmoss.com. Ben Moss, shine bright. Let's bring in Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. Mike, how was your Father's Day weekend?
It was tremendous. I don't know if you can tell. It's not quite Gene Principe levels of sun exposure. I'm a little red today. Got out with my dad, my son, and my brother. We had a lovely round of golf at Larders yesterday. Larders, by the way, I'm not being paid for this endorsement. Absolutely mint condition. The fairways are beautiful. The greens are running great. Didn't translate to an overall outstanding game by me, but a good time was had by all. Great way to spend Father's Day morning. Then Huss, continuing the theme of golf. It was an off day for the Stanley Cup, of course, so could focus entirely on golf. I was absolutely captivated by the final round of the U.S. Open. I don't care what some people say. Give me Oakmont every week. I loved to see these guys brought to their knees by the golf course. Like, birdies are fun, sure, but I love this kind of event where the course was kind of prevailing over these players. And I mean, just some absolutely epic anger and frustration, guys breaking tee markers and smashing clubs and tossing clubs. I love it. I love the emotion. And what a great finish. And Huss, you know, I'm a huge advocate of the Manitoba Open Players Cup. I used to caddy in it when I was a kid. I've continued to follow it. I cover it every year for the Free Press. I bet there's a lot of local golf fans that are now going around saying, I remember watching JJ Spawn out at Pine Ridge a decade ago. He finished third that week, almost won the Players Cup, now called the Manitoba Open. And let the record show, JJ Spawn would go on the very next week in Thunder Bay, the now defunct, I think they called it the Stahl Open, the Stahl family hosted it. That was his one win on the Canadian Tour as part of what was a breakthrough year for him. But it's a pretty cool story when a guy that played in the Manitoba Open is now a major champion. And I mean, we've seen lots of guys make the jump. Johnny Kiefer, who just won the Manitoba Open a year ago, he was playing in the US Open and had a whale of a time getting out of some rough. But, you know, it was a great tournament, great ending, lots of drama. And yeah, and I'm on holidays this week, so things are off to a great start.
Life is good. Life is good. You know, just quickly on the Open yesterday. You're right. It was carnage. I mean, listen, you don't want to see that every week, but once a week, you know that the USGA is going to say, come get it. And it's going to take some special play just to be near par.
Yeah.
For Spawn to do what he did on 17 with that drive.
Amazing.
And then sinking the longest putt of the entire tournament on the 18th hole for an exclamation mark on his victory was one of the coolest things to see. And this is a guy that started off with bogeys on the first 5 of the first 6 holes. He was done. And yet somehow found a way to get back into it. And it really is patience. You need to be able to just find a way to play the next shot and survive to the next hole, because the same things happen to everybody else. But it really was cool. I mean, a great underdog story. And you know what was actually, I'll remember for a long time from this, it was Tyrrell Hatton's reaction to watching the putt.
That was tremendous.
It was tremendous. And I'm not sure if you saw the picture of Robert McIntyre in the scoring booth, just sitting back there waiting to see what happened. And just the big clap. Wow. I mean, pure class on both of those guys, who actually sort of have a rep of being kind of curmudgeonly overall. And I mean, even if you were a guy that was falling just short of achieving a dream of a major, at some point you have to tip your cap to a guy that did what JJ Spawn did yesterday.
If you're Robert McIntyre, who, of course, I mean, deep down he was hoping for a 3-putt, right?
Yeah.
But the way JJ Spawn to win it like that, that's easier to swallow for sure than if he had 2-putted like that.
Knee knocker's 6-footer to come back.
Absolutely. So honestly, like, I mean, there would have been disappointment. He's my guy, by the way, of course. I always cheer for a McIntyre, even though our last names are spelt slightly different. He's the MAC, I'm the MC, but I was kind of rooting. I mean, I was rooting for a playoff just because, kind of like the Stanley Cup Final. I didn't want it to end. I was having fun watching it. But yeah, I mean, if there wasn't going to be a playoff for JJ Spawn to sink that, I mean, what was the final distance on that, Huss? Was it 80 feet?
64 and a half, 64, I think.
Okay. I mean, just absolutely bananas. The reaction, I mean, to do that and that crowd, and like, what a moment. That's a sporting moment. They'll be replaying that putt like decades from now during US Open coverage in the future. That'll be part of the permanent highlight pack. So yeah, it was a great weekend of golf. And looking forward now to seeing Lord Stanley handed out this week, whether that'll be tomorrow or Friday. I'm going to go out on a wee bit of a limb here, Huss. I picked Edmonton to win this series in 7. I don't know why I'm still sticking with that, but I am. The Oilers are going to win tomorrow night. They're going to drag it back to Canada, the Game 7 winner take all, and then they're going to be the ones in a squeaker on Friday night that stand tall. You heard it here first, unless I'm wrong, in which case you didn't hear anything.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm with you. Just quickly on that putt, I have a feeling that Oakmont will do something like Oakdale did.
Yeah.
Where, like, if you go to Nick Taylor, there's a little mark on the green as to where Nick Taylor's putt was, where it is. I have a feeling they'll have that too there in Pittsburgh. Is there a
mark? Yeah. Is there a mark in the rough as to where Adam Hadwin was tackled by security? Do they have that marked off?
No, they have. It's just a yellow tape around the. I mean,
that would
the
be
ground,
incredible.
The body.
And a chalk outline.
Yeah, listen, we were just talking with Rennie about the Cup Final. I mean, the Oilers have one more out, but just a really disappointing performance by them after they got back on serve, had home ice to come up, with one of their poorer performances. The playoffs, real disappointing. But at a certain point, much like Tyrrell Hatton and Bobby McIntyre tipping their cap to JJ Spawn, what this Panthers team is doing, led by Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett. I mean, those two guys have been the best players in this series. Leon Draisaitl's been right there.
Yep.
McDavid's still been McDavid. We haven't had that McDavid game. And that, I think, is the expectation of a lot of Oiler fans, that 97 takes over Game 6 and finds a way to lead the way and drag his team back to Edmonton for one game for all the marbles.
Yeah, and that's easier said than done with Florida having last change, and they can get the likes of Barkov and Reinhart out against McDavid. I mean, I think you have to tip your cap to those guys. You get the Selke winner and the Selke runner-up, and I think they're showing why they are, absolute defensive dogs in the way they've been able to stymie the Oilers. And I think, like, the way this series is playing out, Huss, it's all about the depth, really. Like, the Stars will obviously do their thing, but the Florida is just 4 lines deep, and you look at their stats, like, they've got like over a dozen guys in double digits in points. It is incredible the way they're doing it. And there's also that patience. Like they don't cheat. They don't get out of position. They're willing to sit back and wait for Edmonton to make mistakes. And then they are tenacious and they take advantage of those. So yeah, it's been, it's also doesn't bode well in my opinion, Huss. And I don't think this is a hot take. If you're in game 6 of the Stanley Cup and you're not even sure who your goalie is, like that is quite the, and I'm not laying this at the feet of goaltending, but like when's the last time a team in the Stanley Cup Final had this much of a question mark at arguably, I don't even know if it's arguably at the most important position in the game. Like at this point, flip a coin. Like I think Stuart Skinner they go back to him tomorrow. Although how fragile is he? I actually thought he was good in the first period of game 5, even though he gave up 3. And they obviously pulled him, I guess, to light a spark, and it worked because they rallied and won that game, or game 4, sorry. But yeah, I mean, it's just bizarre to me to see this constant, and it goes back to the same old issue with the Oilers. Like, when are they going to address their goaltending? And if they ultimately fall short, like one of the many questions that will continue to haunt this franchise is why didn't they go out and do something about their goaltending?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can always say that. I mean, you can say that about every team that didn't win in the playoffs. I mean, the other goal. It is bizarre, though. I mean, Pickard's been so good. It's the first time since 83-84, I believe, with Fewer and Moog, where 2 different goalies had both won 7 games in the playoffs.
Goaltending by committee.
For the same team. So listen, I expect it to be Stuart Skinner. He's played very well in some of these games with their back against the wall. But it's not like they've been outplaying Florida and just the goaltending hasn't been good enough. I mean, far from it. And again, I don't want to get too much into what Brad Marchand loving because it churns my stomach to do it. But dude, I mean, the game that he played on Saturday night was so phenomenal.
Yeah.
Those goals and
those were McDavid-like goals he scored.
I mean, the second one to do that to, I mean, elite defenseman in the National Hockey, you just don't see that very often. And
you know what it is, Huss? It's the power of Dairy Queen, and I know they like look if the Panthers win the Stanley Cup. If they don't put a freaking blizzard in that Stanley Cup and then turn it upside down.
What are they even doing?
What are they doing? Like that's a layup. That PR opportunity is right there on a tee. Now I don't know how a blizzard would hold up inside the Stanley Cup, but also if we don't get a picture of Brad Marchand with one of those little red Dairy Queen spoons, like eating a cookie dough blizzard out of the Stanley Cup, what a great story. And Huss, we got to know Nate Schmidt when he was in Winnipeg. Nobody should be surprised to hear that Nate Schmidt is behind this Dairy Queen stuff. In fact, he's been picking up the tab for all his teammates. And apparently it started as like a small group outing, I think back in the first or second round. And now it's turned into like nearly the whole team is going. Like I think the other night in Edmonton, they had 16 guys or something. That's a pretty hefty Dairy Queen tab. Now, I suppose Nate Schmidt's using some of that buyout money from the Jets. Like in a way, the Jets are actually funding those Dairy Queen trips because Nate Schmidt would be signed for league minimum. He's not making he's not making a ton of new money. It's the old money that's helping paying the tab. So I guess in some small way, the Jets are, and you could say not just a small way, Paul Maurice, of course, is certainly having a thing or two to say about how this is playing out. But the Jets' fingerprints, their sticky ice cream covered fingerprints are all over this series in a way.
You know, it's funny you bring up Schmidt because I've been sort of paying attention to one of the interesting prop markets that Coolbet has up is if the Panthers win the cup, who'll be the first player that gets handed the cup? And Nate Schmidt has been the
Really?
betting favorite on that throughout, just because he wasn't there last year.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
of course, he'd be sort of the one in. It's now tied with Schmidt and Brad Marchand. Marchand, of course, has won one, but it's been a long time, and he's been such a big, big part of it. But
I could see Marchand getting it and passing it to Schmidt.
It'll be one of those two guys.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't imagine there's a similar prop bet for the Oilers. Like, is there any doubt that it would be Connor McDavid who gets it first?
Well, he's the captain. He would.
Sure.
No, but it's who they pass it to first.
Oh, I see. So it's after who does
Like
who does Barkov give it to?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. The first player to receive the handoff.
Beyond the leadership.
The Oilers' favorite is Nuge.
Yeah, he's an original. For sure.
Nuge, and then Draisaitl, and then kind of everybody else. I'm with you though. I picked Oilers in 7. I don't feel great about that right now.
No, me neither.
3.5 of these games have been so good.
Yeah.
I mean, we just, like, for hockey fans, I know everyone's like, oh, it takes so long. I'm more than happy with it going to Friday if that means a 7th game.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of takes about why this is stretched out so much. Folks, the NHL is in some ways at the mercy of the NBA. Like, they're not conflicting with the NBA final. They already struggle to get viewers in the US. They'd have nobody watching, like nobody, if they were on the same night as the NBA finals. So that's part of the reason. And the NBA traditionally has dragged its final championship series out. They like have 2 days break between every game. So the NHL had to stick handle around that schedule. But yeah, I mean, I get it. It's been a grind. I think the first playoff game, like, I think they started. Did the Jets play April 16th? I think, Huss? Maybe it was the 17th, something like that. It was basically 2 months ago, which seems like a lifetime ago now. That the Jets played the Blues on that. What was it? A Saturday night, I guess. Yeah, the Saturday night to get the playoffs going. Like, that was a lifetime ago, and here we are still playing. But it's going to usher in, like, there's not going to be a whole lot of window. I don't know if it was Drager or one of the insiders said that the window between the end of the Stanley Cup final, whether that's tomorrow or Friday, and I would imagine if it's Friday, his words are going to be even more prophetic, is that it's going to be an absolutely wild time, because we're talking about a lot of things, the buyout period and obviously guys trying to lock up UFAs or guys going to market, potential UFAs being moved if they know they're not being signed by teams. Then you got the draft, offer sheets, and that's sort of hanging in the air now because of what happened last summer. So yeah, we're the NHL schedule is going to be released for next season. That's coming up next week. So there's a lot of things here in the next week or two that are going to happen before the NHL kind of goes to sleep for a while, just a few days after July 1 and the news really starts to slow down to a trickle. But it'll be a frenzy between now and then for sure.
Let's, we hit on this a bit ago. We played the clip from Elliot Friedman. What do you make of the report that Nikolai Ehlers will go to July 1st and see what else is out there?
Yeah, and of course, to be clear, like, that doesn't completely close the door on the Jets. I mean, he could go see what's out there and decide the grass isn't greener and, dance with the devil, if you will. But I think a couple of weeks ago, Huss, you asked me to kind of handicap it. And I think at the time I said like 60% that he was gone. But with each day that passed, I would add another 2 to 3%. Do the math. 14 days have passed since we talked. I mean, I'm well into the 90s now that Nikolai Ehlers is going to be playing for another team next year, because I just think if there was a deal to be done, that it would have been done, because I honestly don't see. I think it's more about fit and opportunity than strictly money. I really do. And now maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe we'll see him sign a deal with another team that absolutely blows away what the Jets could have done. But, I still think if Nikolai Ehlers felt like the fit and the opportunity were right, I still think the Jets would be the team that he signs with, even if it meant maybe the final number isn't quite as big as what he's going to get. And
he could get an 8th year.
He would get an 8th year, right? So I mean, that certainly adds. If we're talking about an AAV in the 8 to 9 million range, like that could add a lot of money at the end of the deal. But yeah, I mean, I think there's enough teams out there, and he probably recognized this. His agent's probably telling him this, that look, this is a pretty lean year for UFAs. Like if you're not going to get lost in the crowd here, Nick, you're not the 15th or 20th best option on the market who's going to be left to kind of see what's still out there once the smoke clears. You'll be the one creating the smoke. You're the fire at the top of that list. So, I think it's probably a really smart business decision to see what's out there. And again, it doesn't mean that it's completely done with Winnipeg. I do think, though, that we're definitely getting into that territory where if I'm the Jets, I'm treating it as if he's gone, and starting to look at how you're going to use the cap space that would be freed up by obviously not committing to Nikolai Ehlers and to fill what's now going to be a pretty big hole in your lineup.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I did say to Rennie, I mean, I still don't think the Jets would trade his rights to someone else to give them the opportunity to negotiate ahead and potentially get that 8th year. But I also thought that if the Jets were going to get Nikolai Ehlers, they were probably going to have to give him that 8th year on a deal that pays him close to what was available in and around. And I guess you don't know what you don't know until you know. And the only way you'll know that is when you get official, although I'm sure there's lots of tampering going on right now. So there's probably a pretty good idea about what may or may not be out there. The Jets did make a move yesterday, signing Alphonse Frey to ELC, Mike. That's just part of, filling the funnel, the pipeline here. Do we think he might be here next year? What do we know about Alphonse, who was picked in the 2nd round?
Yeah, I know they were thrilled with the season that he just had. And correct me if I'm wrong, Huss, I just haven't looked this up recently, but he's the other piece of the PL Dubois trade, correct? I
believe you are right. That's the pick that they used, the Montreal selection.
Yes, so he's the other. Now, Rasmus Kapari is now gone, although I suspect the Jets still will retain his rights while he goes and plays the next couple of years overseas. They've obviously re-signed Iafallo. Velarde is the RFA, and that needs a new deal. But if Alphonse Frey turns out to be something like what looked like a pretty lopsided trade gets even more skewed. That being said, a couple things on his signing, Huss. I was looking the last week, and the Jets only had like 41. I could be off 1 or 2, but teams are allowed to have up to 50 guys under contract. And there's different rules and whatnot about, what counts and how that works. But they have room to sign him now. But I also think it just is a commitment to a guy that they really like his development. I do think it's unlikely that he's with the Jets right off the hop next fall. It's probably like a bit of a Ville Heinola situation. The thing about him, though, Huss, is he can't go to the Manitoba Moose. Because I believe because he was not a first rounder, whereas Ville Heinola, there was that Moose option for him. That won't be the case here. So it's NHL or bust. I don't even know. I can't sit here today and say whether he's even going to be at camp this year or if they just let him go to his club team over there and they wait one more year. But in any event, I think they really like what they have in him. But I'd be surprised if he's a player this fall for the Jets. Obviously, they got a guy like Elias Solomonson, who I think we fully expect is going to get a long, hard look at camp. And I go back to the exit day interviews last month, and the excitement that Kevin Cheveldayoff and especially Scott Arniel, when they spoke of Salomonson, Arniel comparing him to Dylan Sandberg, which is pretty high praise. So I think there's another young defenseman the Jets will be trying to integrate into their team this fall. As for Alphonse, he's probably got to wait another year.
Mike, great stuff as always. Just on the way out, what did you think of the start to the season for the Bombers on Thursday?
Yeah, impressive. And doing it obviously without Zach Collaros. It was a bit of a statement game, I think. And one thing about the Bombers, Huss, I suspect they don't want to get off to the kind of start they did last year, where
definitely not.
Yeah, so this was a really strong start. I imagine Mike O'Shea, as we expect, had those guys dialed in. That maybe there was a bit of a hangover type effect last year. I think what's happened in these, certainly last year's Grey Cup, and with the Grey Cup being held in Winnipeg this year, I expect this group to be absolutely hyper-focused, laser-focused on ensuring that they are playing in that hometown Grey Cup this year. And nothing I saw last week changes my mind about that. In fact, sort of reinforces that this team, they're probably going to be on a season-long mission, and that was a great start against what I think we all agree is going to be a pretty good BC Lions team. Bombers get full marks for that, and looking forward to the rematch here coming up.
Mike, great stuff, buddy. Thanks for doing this. Have a great week of holidays.
You bet, and we'll see you on Thursday night, Huss.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Popping in, week off, ballpark.
Indeed.
It's going to be a good time. We can't wait to see everybody, including you there. So let's do it. We'll see you on Thursday night.
Awesome. Take care.
Of course, Mike talking about our Gold Eyes night, which I believe we have a single ticket left. So if you've been sitting around and want to join the crew, WinnipegSportsTalk.com, get on over there. Get that final ticket, and we will see you on Thursday night for our patio party. We got the entire lower deck underneath Craft Beer Corner. Mike will be there, myself, Connor, Liz, Remis, a few of our other regulars. Really looking forward to it, so it should be a very good time. Let's do fan feedback, brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. Was the place to go for Jet tickets this year for both buying and selling. And the tickets now for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are available on Fans First. So while we had another sellout game on Thursday, you can always get on over to Fans First. No fees. What you see, the price on the ticket is exactly and only what you will pay at fansfirst.ca. The talk was about the future of Nikolai Ehlers. The question was quite simple. Will Nikolai Ehlers be a Jet next season? And the final details of the poll: no, 70%, yes, 30%. So we got 30% of WSTers holding on hope that Ehlers will be back. The real number is probably a little less than that, but it is somewhere between 0 and 30. And wouldn't it be nice? We saw the big underdog story of J.J. Spawn yesterday. How about the underdog story of the Ehlers, yes, coming through? Give us your thoughts on that and much more in the chat. Fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans. No fees. Big tent sale last weekend at Royal Sports. They'll do another one later on this summer. So stay, excuse me, on top of that. But if you're getting out camping this summer, get down to Royal and check out that amazing Yeti section. Get ready for that next Bomber game. Tons of new Bomber gear, many exclusives that you won't find anywhere else. But, while we focus in on the best selection of Jets gear and all your favorite licensed team merchandise, now it's time to dominate summer. New bikes coming in all the time, including e-bikes at Royal Sports. Huge selection. Soccer, baseball, softball, tennis, running. It's all at Royal Sports. So if you haven't been there, get down there and keep your eyes on their Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops. And again, tent sale information, because nobody does a tent sale like Royal Sports. NBA Finals tonight. Stanley Cup Final tomorrow night. Boston Pizza's the place to be. Watch the big game with big sound on all the big screens and take care of a big appetite with the Boston Pizza playoff menu. The Scoville Showdown. Wing flights are back. The new pizzas, the triple pap, the wingman as well. And, of course, that all-star Canadian maple poutine that people are loving as well. And, hey, if you can't make it out, you can always get it hot and fresh to your door by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, we're going to recap the week in the Canadian Football League with Justin Dunk. First up, though, let's give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
2 weeks down in the Canadian Football League season, let's welcome in our pal Justin Dunk from 3 Down Nation, your number one spot for all things CFL. Dunk, what is up? How are you, man?
My guy, doing well. Appreciate the hype for 3 Down Nation. Right back at you for Winnipeg Sports Talk, man. This place has grown and grown and grown. You guys are awesome. Happy to make time. Sorry I couldn't come on sooner. Appreciate your patience.
Hey, well, listen, of course, you're busy with the 3 Down and doing a lot of work for a Rider broadcast. We'll get to the Riders for a minute, but we had to wait an extra week to finally talk about a Winnipeg Blue Bombers football game. But they kicked off their season week 2 in pretty impressive fashion. I mean, what were your expectations going into that game, and what did you think once the 60 minutes was done at Princess Auto?
I thought Winnipeg was going to win the game. I think that was easy considering BC was on the short week. That said, I don't think anybody expected to lose Brady Oliveira, who left that game, and we'll see how long he's out with this upper body injury. But then up steps Matthew Paterson, who looked great at the University of Alberta, the Golden Bears. I covered a number of those games over the years when he was with that team, and he's a great running back. And that trade that Kyle Walters made in the offseason already paying dividends to kind of make that running back position Canadian. So you liked what you saw out of him. I thought the offensive line was good, but the underrated story to me, fellas, in that game was Chris Drevler throwing the football better arguably than we've ever seen him throw the football. I know there's a lot of talk about him potentially being pigeonholed into that short yardage role and that he's mainly a runner and can't get it done as a passer. But I felt like what we saw from him in the preseason against the Riders translated over into that opening week. Is he a guy that can be your starter every single week and win games with his arms? I think that's still a question mark, but he showed that he has improved as a passer just based on that one regular season start and win in the Bombers opener.
Let me ask you this about Strevler, because we've seen him play, make big plays through the air at times. It's not like he's never thrown the football before, but I'm with you. I think for a 60-minute game, that was as good as he's looked like. The fact that the Blue Bombers knew all through training camp that Zach Collaros was not going to be the starter for week number 1, or for game number 1 in this case for the Bombers. I really kind of think that they gave Strevler a little bit more opportunity throughout camp and the preseason to prepare, and with preparation sometimes come results, because he was fantastic on Thursday night.
That's a great point. And I think some people, fans in particular, get all excited about players when they see them for just a little bit and then expect them to be great all the time without getting many reps in practice. And I think, Hustler, your point's well taken there with Chris Drevler, knowing he was going to be the starter for the Bombers opener in week 2, having that bye gave him extra time to prepare. And Zach Collaros has had, countless reps over the years being the starter. But when you get those increased reps with the first team, it builds a rapport with the receivers, with the offensive line. Everything is just more comfortable. And I think that really benefited Chris Drevler. But I do think that he has worked on his passing and looked better, especially throwing some of those wide field throws, the outs, the comebacks, the curls. Looks much more effortless for Chris Drevler.
I got to touch on Paterson while you mention him. That trade was such a unique one for the Canadian Football League. It was 2 players, it was 2 global draft picks, and it was 2 draft picks in the CFL draft. Kind of both teams getting kind of what they were looking for. Who could have imagined him making such an impact so early on? But, I mean, anyone that's followed U Sports over the last few years knew that this guy was not just a star player, but a very special 5-year contributor that put up some huge numbers in Alberta. And like so many Canadian players, Dunk, it's just a matter of getting an opportunity. And he got one maybe earlier than expected, but made the most of it.
Indeed, man. You are preaching, Hustler. That's what I truly believe about our Canadian athletes, whether they go south of the border to play their university or college football or stay up in Canada, that there just needs to be equal opportunity there with what some of the Americans get at, quote, the skill positions. And I think Matthew Paterson is the definition of that. Is there a jump, a bigger jump, going from Canadian university football to the CFL compared to the NCAA to the CFL? Yes, but I think that gap is shrinking all the time. And we see how many players come through the league from the NCAA, American or Canadian, that don't work out. But I think more and more we're seeing Canadian university players taking advantage of developing to be ready for that jump when they get in the game. And we saw that from Matthew Paterson, right from the get-go. He slices down Broadway, open field cuts for a great touchdown run. I'm sure Bombers fans are going, who is this guy? Well, as you mentioned, traded for him in the offseason, a very interesting trade nonetheless. And he takes advantage of being behind at the time the reigning MOP and MLC and Brady Oliveira, who knows how to go through that transformation from the collegiate level to being a star pro back, or at least being a pro back that consistently produces. So Matthew Paterson has clearly done that. The way he went about his business at the University of Alberta was, I think, a quieter mentality, right? He put in the work. He wasn't necessarily a rah-rah guy, or he wasn't arrogant for sure. And I think that showed in the way that he was able to develop in the Canadian Football League and then be ready for his moment. And it might turn into moments here, depending how long Oliveira's out.
Let's stick in the West. How was the post game in Ryderville? The team's 2-0. Nice start for Saskatchewan, and a big win on the road in a game that they got contributions on both the offensive and defensive side of the football.
Take one guess, Hustler. What was the theme of the post game show?
Parade routes.
Oh, no, actually, there were none of those calls. All the talk, despite the win and being 2-0, was about Brett Lauther missing 3 field goals and an extra point. You had Rider Nation calling in, by and large part, wanting to cut him and moving on. But then I said, Hustler, okay, you're cutting this guy who's made clutch kicks, who had made 22 in a row, after missing in the Labor Day Classic last year to end the season. Who are you bringing in? Like, that's my point with the fans here. You want to cut this guy, but who are you bringing in? And then the fans say, well, that's Jeremy O'Day's job. And I'm like, you're the ones calling in saying that you want Brett Lauther cut. But who are you actually going to bring in? The 2 other Canadian kickers that the Riders had in training camp were Brian Garrity. And with all due respect, we saw that shank that he hit his first career pro field goal attempt in Winnipeg. He came back later in that game, knocked one through. And then the other one after Garrity was released was Dawson Hodge. So there are some free agents out there. I mentioned Boris Beattie on the post-game show, but Brett Lauther has shown that in the clutch, he's capable of coming through for the Riders. So I don't think in one game where you missed 3 kicks, yes, it would have been a much comfortable win, but a win nonetheless, that you can just be cutting your veteran kicker who has come through a number of times for you. So Rider Nation's passionate. You guys know how they are. And it was just interesting to see that a bunch of people wanted him cut despite the loss. And I thought the Riders, as you mentioned, played well on all sides of the ball. There's things to certainly tidy up there. Corey Mace didn't like some of the coverage bus in the back end, but Saskatchewan is off to a great start.
Lauther is not a rookie here. He's been around. I mean, listen, there will be guys that'll have off games. Better it happen in a winning fashion in week 2 than later on in the season. I mean, if this becomes a constant, for a length that, obviously O'Day's going to have to take a look at it. But yeah, I think it is overreaction season early on in the Canadian Football League. Well, let me ask you this while we're sticking in the West. What were your expectations of the Stamps this year? And might this team be much more in the mix than I think a lot of pundits thought going into the campaign?
Calgary's certainly showing it, and Dave Dickinson is giving the double Brian Cox Jr., if you know what I mean, to his haters that doubted him in the offseason, at least through the opening weeks. He's got 2 wins to match his 2 middle fingers there. I'm not saying he's doing that outwardly, but there were a lot of people who had Dave Dickinson on the hot seat or potentially thought he should have been fired after the 2024 season. Well, it's just 2 games, and 2 games does not a season make, but the Stamps look pretty good. You know, the offense, I think, is rolling with Vernon Adams Jr. there. They're getting it done in multiple ways through the air and on the ground. Obviously, Reggie Begelton going out against the Toronto Argonauts is going to be a big hole to fill, but the Stamps were able to refocus and get that road win in Toronto, which, as much as people might chirp the Argonauts for the lack of fans in the stands, there was a decent showing there. And the Argos, over the years since Ryan Dinwiddie have been there, have largely taken care of their business at home. So it's not an easy place to go into and get a win. I mean, it's not quite Montreal-like when you go there, but there are lots of possible distractions in Toronto, if you know what I'm talking about. So full credit to Calgary for the 2-0 start.
Of course, VA, 2 wins in his first 2 starts with his new club. And, he didn't have crazy numbers in week 1. They got a lot of their touchdowns on the ground, but 300 yards. And tell you what, it's about winning. And we had a lot of conversation, myself and Hamilton, about, potential MOP sleepers. 20-1 on VA for a team that everyone expected to be at the bottom of the league. I mean, if this team makes the playoffs, he's going to be getting a lot of love right now. And I'll be honest, it's great to see him as a starter because you knew that there was only so many reps to go around in BC once Nathan Rourke come back. Just on Rourke, what are you hearing about his injury, and what do you make of the fact that he's 0-5 against the Bombers and yet has a pretty stellar record against the other opponents in the Canadian Football League?
Yeah, I think the Bombers have made it difficult on Rourke in terms of how many guys they have in coverage. Now, Jordan Younger likes to do this in terms of having, 7, 8, 9 guys consistently in coverage and rush 3 a lot of the time, which makes the windows tighter to throw into. So I think the more that Rourke is able to see that in this offense that he's running with Buck Pierce could potentially help him, but they certainly had his number. I mean, it's difficult going against a guy like Willie Jefferson, who can almost shut down one side of the field just because of how tall he is, plus his wingspan. It's unbelievable. You got to try to throw over him or in and around him. So I think Rourke's going to have to get it figured out and be on the same page with his receivers in terms of finding those smaller windows inside the zones and then really taking opportunities when you see the man coverage. As for his oblique injury, I think the Lions will want to play it safe. Rourke is going to want to play, but I think there needs to be further evaluation on that. Can he actually make it worse? I'm not a doctor, nor am I going to try to play one on your show, Hustler. So we'll all be tuned into that. But knowing Nathan Rourke, he's going to do all he can to be on the field.
Dunk, let's take a look at the East, and it's Montreal at 2-0, and then everybody else at 0-2. Listen, I was buying the Alouettes being the team to beat to begin with in the East, but how big is the gap between Montreal and everybody else at this early point in the season outside of the obvious difference in the standings?
It seems pretty big right now, especially with the way Davis Alexander, the great, if you will, has been playing great football. He's about to continue climbing this list of best career CFL starts in a career. 6-0. A guy atop that list is Bo Levi Mitchell with 8-0. I think Davis Alexander the Great could potentially get to the double digits in terms of starting his career. 10-0, 11-0, 12-0. Let's see how far he can take it. And the calling card for this team, though, is the physicality and the way they run around on defense and make an impact, turn the football over, and get after opposing passers. Noel Thorpe has this unit going. And if you go back to Danny Machoch's time at the University of Montreal when he was the head coach with the Carabins, it's very similar to the way that they played football. And then when you add in a young, intriguing, up-and-coming pivot like Davis Alexander, along with the weapons that he has, it's a very dynamic football team, but it's also a tough football team to beat. This team is nasty and physical. And I think that they are right now the class of the East. Obviously, were last year, and then in 2023 had the Grey Cup championship. And I think right now, especially with Chad Kelly out for the Toronto Argonauts, that there's a big gap between the Alouettes and the rest of the teams in the East.
Well, speaking of the Chad Kelly, those Argonauts, I did not have them at number 9 on the 3 Down Nation power poll 2 weeks into the season. I mean, speaking of overreactions, are we panicking a little too much about the double blue through 2 games?
I think possibly, but then also you look at the uncertainty around Chad Kelly and when he may or may not return with this team. Let's remember, he broke both bones in his leg in November. Like, that's a pretty quick turnaround to ask him to be ready for the start of the season. And they want to play it safe. Ryan Dinwiddie talked about wanting Kelly to have the ability to protect himself. He's not going to send him out there before he can do that. And I think what he's talking about is his mobility. Chad Kelly is not known for being the most mobile guy, but he can get out of some sticky situations and manipulate the pocket when he needs to, and even pick up the odd first down or two in a second and long situation if it's required and what the defense is giving him. And I think part of the reason why at 3downnation.com that the Argos are at number 9 is because of that uncertainty around Kelly. Nick Arbuckle played better in the second half, but his first, let's call it 6 quarters of football in 2025 as a starter were well less than great, definitely subpar, and I think he would agree. And then also you have your leader and arguably face of the franchise, especially when Chad Kelly's not starting, and Wynton McManus, who suffered a knee injury in training camp and now is going to potentially be out for multiple weeks, if not longer. I hope McManus can get back just for his sake. You never want to see guys hurt. But I think that's why there's some uncertainty around the Argos, coupled with the fact that there were some players that left in the offseason that were proven, a la Jake Ceresna, a la Robbie Williams, that have been replaced. And those guys that are in there now are not as good right away. There's a chance where they could be better. Kadeem Carey would be another one of those guys. You knew what you were getting in Kadeem Carey. He was probably going to be a 1,000-yard rusher. Well, when you have a rookie in there and Mayan Williams toting the rock, and he looked pretty good in that football game, also catching it out of the backfield, it's just not going to be the same from a veteran standpoint. There's a lot of new to learn for some of the players on the Argos roster.
Well, listen, the Argos, I'll give them, and I'll give in particular Ryan Dinwiddie the benefit of the doubt. I have no doubt that come the second half of the season, presumably Chad Kelly's healthy, this team is going to need to be dealt with at some point. But you've got Ottawa and Hamilton, both at 0-2 right now. Who are you higher on, or who are you more concerned about right now at this point, considering last season, the pressure on them coming into this year and the 0-2 starts?
Definitely would be more concerned about the Hamilton Tiger Cats. If the Ottawa Redblacks had Drew Brown in week 2 against Montreal, I think that could have been a much different story. And I look at this Ticats roster, and, the defense honestly worries me. Like, there are some dudes there. Casey Sales is an elite player at his position in the CFL, a bona fide all-star. Jamal Peters at the corner spot is really good. Deshaun Amos was brought over in free agency, who I think can be good, but the talk around the league on him is that he's more of a zone player and less of a man guy. So if you go at him man to man, teams have been shown to be able to beat him. And I think it's a largely unproven linebacking core there. And there was so much reliance on the offense last year and a lot of hype about Bo Levi Mitchell throwing for over 5,400 yards last season, coming into this year and adding Kenny Lawler into the mix. But the offense wasn't the issue last year. So I understand the allure, and we all saw why with that unbelievable catch against the Riders. You want Kenny Lawler, but if you took that, let's say approximately $300,000 and invested it on the defense, I think this Ticats team would be much better off, because they already showed without Kenny Lawler, they could throw for 5,400 plus yards. That was just Bo Levi Mitchell's total alone. It's not like they needed him. I get that you want to upgrade it. But then if your offense isn't putting up 30 plus or even 40 points a game, this defense just flat out isn't good enough at the moment.
Justin Dunk of 3 Down Nation with us. One team we haven't mentioned is the Elks. And they're 0-1. They've got the Alouettes at home this week. Not an easy spot on the schedule. But just thoughts on this situation in Edmonton, how urgently this organization needs some results on the football field, and how that translates into how much rope Ford is going to get with the Grey Cup champion Cody Fajardo behind him now on the depth chart?
There needs to be patience on both fronts. Okay, you have a new general manager in Ed Hervey, a brand new head coach in Mark Killam, a rookie coordinator on the defensive side in JC Sherritt that I know a lot of people are excited about, but it's still new for him. So there's a learning process going on there. And Jordan Maksimic, who is a veteran offensive coordinator in the league, but has a bunch of new pieces there. So I think there is going to be patience required in Edmonton. And as much as I was hard on Trey Ford for his performance in week 1, and he needs to be better, there needs to be some patience there too, because if he can show, and I feel like this is the main item, let's call it, with Trey Ford as to whether he's going to be a bona fide week in and week out starting quarterback in this league, he needs to show he can win from the pocket consistently. Escape when you see a blitz, escape when there's some push up the middle, escape when it's needed, but you got to be able to win from the pocket. Now, we flashed that at times last year, but when you're the guy week in and week out, you need to be able to do that. You need to play on schedule. It's such a cliche thing to say, but look at Trevor Harris. The ball is out in rhythm, quickly, and on time. That gives your receivers the ability to catch the football, not get drilled and potentially be sent to the hospital, and also open space to run yards after the catch. I think that is very key. If Trey Ford is not hitting that last step in his drop, crow hopping forward and letting the ball go, or not hitting that last step in his drop and getting rid of the football, then there are going to remain issues in this offense, because you cannot live and die based off the scrambling, because eventually you will die. And I've lived it at the University of Guelph. I was taught that you need to play on time in the pocket from one Kyle Walters, who was a defensive guy for his career in the Canadian Football League and at Guelph, and he had been our defensive coordinator. But he taught me about it from the defensive perspective, that it's almost uncoverable if that football is out on time and in rhythm, especially if we're talking about in man-to-man situations and against zone. That's what it has to be. The ball has to be gone when that window is there. Otherwise, it's hard for the offense to stay on the field. Trey Ford can make world-class plays on the football field. We saw that against BC, the scramble to, I think it was his right and all the way back left. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Big
it's a
play
Madden
down
play.
The field. It's crazy. It is a Madden play, but you can't live on that down in and down out.
Hey, look, before we go, I got to ask you about the schedule, Dunk. And I'm not sure, listen, I haven't gone through the other team schedules as much as the Bombers, but listen, we always know they have a back-to-back Labor Day and Banjo Bowl with the Riders. But is this a trend around the league? They start off with a home and home against BC. Like Saturday's game is the last time the Bombers are going to see BC until the playoffs. Later on, they have one game against Edmonton, then a home and home against Calgary. They follow that up with a home and home back-to-back against Toronto, and then have it against Saskatchewan later on. Is the league specifically trying to make teams go head-to-head and play these back-to-back series? I get it at Labor Day, but half the Bombers' season is back-to-back games.
You know, I don't think it's something the league is specifically trying to do, and you'd have to ask the schedule maker to get the exact answer. But I think a lot of why the delay happened had to do with venue and stadium ability, and then also the teams wanting to have their home games on preferred times. You know, you just rhymed off the Bombers' schedule, and if you look at the Riders' schedule, I don't think it has any of those home and home sets except for against the Blue Bombers, if memory serves me properly, the Labor Day Classic, and then the Banjo Bowl, or they like to call it the Labor Day rematch in Regina. So, you know, I think that was just something that is an anomaly just based on knowing the Riders' schedule like the back of my hand. And I'd have to look at other schedules, but I don't think that's something that the league's trying to do. I think you would ideally want to space those matchups out, to your point.
6 of the Bombers' first 7 games are back-to-back home and homes against other CFL teams.
That's crazy.
I think I know there's a bye popped in between the Calgary games, but really interesting. Well, it does make this game, and this is bizarre to say, the Bombers are playing their second game of the season, and yet point differential, if they don't win this game, is going to be crucial, because this is a 2-game set that's going to be over in week 3 between Winnipeg and BC.
Indeed, man. They all count the same in the standings. You know, people talk about the season doesn't really start until Labor Day. I've never bought that. 2 points is 2 points. I don't care when you get it. And to your point, this is a massive game for potential tie-breaking scenarios and home game in the playoff scenarios.
No doubt about it. Dunk, before we go, we're well into the season. You guys are killing it. Fill people in on what they're missing at 3 Down Nation if they haven't checked out the site.
Thanks, man. Appreciate the chance to do so. 3downnation.com will always stay up with the latest news, but you know, our bread and butter are our post-game analysis columns. We got a couple new people in different markets. We got Griff in Toronto. We got Josh in Hamilton, some guys that are on the come up, and we got people across the league giving you what we tried to do as the best analysis across the Canadian Football League in terms of written form. So, appreciate the opportunity to come on your show. You guys keep doing your thing and pleasing your audience as well. And that's what we're trying to do at 3 Down Nation.
Great chatting as always. Let's do this again soon, pal. Enjoy the week in 3 Down Ball.
Yes, sir. You too.
Manitoba Open. Perfect segue to remind you that our friends at Breezy Bend are hosting the Manitoba Open this year. And late August, we'll be down there doing some shows from the Open, and biggest tournament of the year, all year long here in the province of Manitoba. My guy, Tony Finau. I thought Tony Finau would be the player that came out of the Players' Cup to win a major. It's JJ Spawn who did it yesterday. But hey, if you are interested in finding out more about Breezy, potentially making Breezy your long-term golfing home, call our pal Corey Johnson at the clubhouse to talk about getting on the waiting list. You can also find out information at breezybend.ca. And hey, we're hoping to have Max Murphy jump on the program this week from the Goldeyes, the all-time home run king for the Fish. Goldeyes back. Mitch Lamson, a pitcher of the week. He had a great start earlier this week. And, of course, the Fish are back for a 6-game homestand beginning tomorrow. And we look forward to seeing all of you WSTers Thursday night for the patio party at the ballpark. Thursday night, thanks to everyone that grabbed their tickets so far. Should be an awesome, awesome evening. All right, we're going to hit these Olympic rosters before we go out. But let's get over to the Coolbet lines right now. Stanley Cup Final resumes tomorrow. The Oilers plus 126 underdogs. Panthers minus 148 to win the series. The series price right now, Oilers 3-1 to win game 6 and 7. The Florida Panthers minus 370. Sam Bennett, heavy favorite to win the Conn Smythe right now, minus 185. Brad Marchand is second at 4-1. And then you got McDavid and Draisaitl at plus 750. Remis, that top goal scorer in series, Marchand, that I got at 17-1, minus 250 now.
Wow.
For Marchand. Sam Bennett, 1 goal back. He's 3-1. Draisaitl, 8-1. Sam Reinhart, 100-1. And top point scorer in series still up there. I mean, there's a few other props if you do like it. But again, it's all about tomorrow night. Plus 126. Can the Oilers drag this thing back to Edmonton? Tonight, we've got the crucial Game 5 in the NBA Finals. The Pacers get no respect. They're 9.5-point underdogs in OKC tonight. OKC minus 417 on the money line. Pacers plus 330. And the series price right now, Pacers plus 383. Thunder minus 526. I did put together a little baseball play today. We got to be fired up. Ohtani's back. And Ohtani, no, he's back. He's pitching back, I mean. He's getting the start tonight against the Padres. So we did put together a little parlay. Now, I have no idea why the Phillies are basically a pick 'em against the Miami Marlins. But no worries, we will take Philly. We're going to take the Yankees. They just got swept by the Red Sox, but the Angels also got swept. So Yankees to get back into the win column, and then we're going to ride with Ohtani and the Dodgers. That was plus 379, but if you go into the combo cards, you will see the ride with us at plus 440. So a very nice boost from Jake. Jake's going to join us tomorrow on the program. We'll get his thoughts on Game 6 of the Cup Final and all the odds going into tomorrow. We'll maybe do up a same gamer. But for tonight, if you want to ride with me on the baseball, Phillies, Yankees, Dodgers, boosted to plus 440 in the combo cards. Right now, they've got a couple of other good ones for the NBA Finals tonight. And the Monday Night Super Boost, Halliburton over 14.5 points, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander over 29.5, boosted from minus 116 to plus 145. A week today, I think we're going to do the next poker tourney, by the way. So we'll start firing that out. But WST Poker Series at Coolbet next Monday night. Figured Monday's a perfect time to do it. Sunday was a little tough with people, away for the weekends. Monday, I think, will be perfect right now. So June 23rd, that's our date. We'll have more details on when it's open, when you can register. Hopefully, we will see you there. Hey, if you haven't played at Coolbet before, what are you waiting for? Head on over. Use the promo code WST when you put in your first deposit. They'll give you a 100% match up to $200 on that first deposit. All right, let's get Remis back in here. And Remo, a couple stories we need to hit before the end of the program. But we do have the first 6 members of the Canadian Olympic team for next year's Winter Olympics. Of course, I'm talking about Best on Best Hockey.
Yeah, the Olympics in February will be, I'm sure, projecting rosters all summer as we count down. And they do this first 6, I think, for marketing purposes. It's good to have players who are on the team, so for coming up with promotional stuff. I still have McDonald's coins from 1998 with the first 6 they mentioned, somewhere in my parents' house. Got Rob Blake, Joe Sakic, Al McInnes, Chris Pronger. It was 98 or 2002, 1 year they had coins.
Good memory.
It was Coca-Cola coins. I was buying packs of Coke and getting a coin, or McDonald's hockey pucks. They're in my parents' house somewhere. Anyways, no one wants to hear about that. They want to hear the first 6. You were wondering who it was going to be. I think it was pretty easy. 4 of them: Crosby, McKinnon, McDavid, Makar. Who were the other 2 going to be? Would they announce another defenseman? Could it be Josh Morrissey? Would they announce a goalie? Did Jordan Binnington cement his spot with his play in the Four Nations? Both of those were wrong. Sam Reinhart gets the other spot, certainly deserving, played top line. I actually thought, would they name Mitch Marner? Because he played a big role for Canada in the Four Nations, but they did not pick him. It was Braden Point who was locked in at center. So they'll pick all centers: McDavid, Crosby, McKinnon, Point. I think one of them will be playing on the wing at some point.
Yeah.
But they went with 4 centers, a winger, and a D. So no surprise here. These guys were all on Four Nations, and 4 of those guys were a lock to be named on the first 4.
Yeah, and no Binnington, as you mentioned. I think goaltending is just so weird. In a case like this, where these guys are going to be in team, name that, see what happens. Binnington, in all likelihood, will be the starter, though, after his performance. Well, I would have thought that maybe the Hart Trophy winner would be on Team USA, but they did not take a goaltender in their early selections, Reem.
I wonder if there's some internal discussion about who the starter is going to be. Did Hellebuck lose the job with his play in the playoffs? Did Ottinger win it with his play against the Jets and then lose it with his play against the Oilers?
How much is any of that going to matter in February of next year?
Probably not a lot. I think it is easy to not name a goalie Here's the Team USA: Matthew Tkachuk, Brady Tkachuk, Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, Quinn Hughes, and Charlie McAvoy. I think McAvoy a bit of a surprise over Werenski to be part of the first 6, but Werenski is going to be on the team, so like, does any of this really matter? But this is the first 6, no surprises here. And for USA, they'd like to have Matthew Tkachuk healthy. Like, is Kyle Connor gonna get on the team, Huss? Like, he scored, was the top American scorer.
First team left winger for the NHL.
First team left winger, top American goal scorer. Like, got scratched for an injured Matthew Tkachuk and Chris Kreider, who played like 5 minutes. Like, what's gonna happen?
Skate.
What's gonna happen there? I'm very curious because like I thought, I don't think he was that great, but like, you got to let him play it out. They let Jack Hughes was equally as terrible. And I guess he's center, and they didn't have centers, but I mean, come on. We saw
Talk
the talent.
to any USA hockey fan. They're still pissed off about that move. And in a game that was so tight, where one goal was going to be the difference one way or the other, to not have Kyle Connor there, to have that at least at your disposal if you wanted to play him, was an all-time boneheaded maneuver, and certainly played into the fact that Canada was able to outlast them and beat them in OT. We'll get to some of the more of these other rosters as we go forward. The other big news of the weekend, we maybe should have led off with this right off the top of the program. But it is official. Joey Chestnut is returning to the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest this year. Joey tweeted out, "I am thrilled to be returning to the Nathan's famous 4th of July hot dog eating contest. This event means the world to me. It's a cherished tradition, a celebration of American culture, and a huge part of my life. While I have and continue to partner with a variety of companies, including some in the plant-based space, those relationships were never a conflict with my love of hot dogs. To be clear, Nathan's is the only hot dog company I've ever worked with. I respect that there were differences in interpretation, but I'm grateful we've been able to find common ground. I'm excited to be back on the Coney Island stage, doing what I live to do, and celebrating the 4th of July with hot dogs in my hands. Stay hungry. Joey Chestnut." Remo, it's back. After 1 year away, the greatest to ever do it is going to be crushing hot dogs and buns on the boardwalk on the 4th of July. And thank God for that. I mean, that business of him and Kobayashi last year was underwhelming. And who will ever forget Joey Chestnut in 2023 when bad weather had seemingly canceled the competition? Joey Chestnut himself leading the eaters out of the back, saying, "We will eat," and making sure that the event went off, and of course setting another record. You can't have the 4th of July without Joey Chestnut and hot dogs.
Yeah, and if for anyone out there who doesn't remember, they wouldn't let him compete because he had signed an endorsement deal with a plant-based hot dog company, and they went ahead with the event, and even the people competing thought that there was an asterisk next to the yellow mustard belt.
Patrick Deep Dish Bertholetti, that won his first mustard belt, said himself that, it's just not right. I wasn't able to do it. Beating the man that is the standard for competitive eating in Joey Chestnut.
Yeah, and I think it diminished the event. People didn't take it as seriously. I'm sure their viewership was down. I think they need each other, the Major League Eating and the hot dog eating contest, and Joey Chestnut. And so, yeah, common sense prevails. He's going to be back, and we will be tuned in on July 4. What day is that this week? That's a Friday. So I always enjoy So we'll be live. I always enjoy watching it and then talking about it after. So going for a record. I haven't been up to date because he wasn't in it last year. He did his own thing with Kobayashi that had different
and he ate like
rules.
80 hot dogs or something. But that's the thing. Like, I don't know whether the sizes were the same. I mean, we need Nathan's hot dogs We need uniform hot dogs, buns, rules, the way that it's been done, competing for the mustard belt for decades. And Joey Chestnut will be back. So I'm fired up about that, and the fact that it's a Friday that we've now discovered. I mean, what a great way to get into the day. We do Lock Shop. We'll watch the 4th of July hot dog contest as we do the program. And then we do marbles, and then we finish it up. Great marble race last week, but it's just Monday. We can't get into a marble state of mind just yet. We've got lots to get to. Tomorrow, Cup Final, game number 6. We'll get to that. And, of course, we'll have some CFL 110 tomorrow as well with myself and Jeff Hamilton. So stick around. Should be a big one tomorrow. Great stuff today, though. Thanks to Rennie for joining us from the Cup Final. Great to catch up with him. Mike McIntyre, Justin Dunk. Tomorrow on the program, we're hoping we will check in with Max Murphy at some point before the game, our game on Thursday. And congrats to the Sea Bears, who made it 3 in a row in front of all the dads yesterday. Another great crowd into the upper deck. Sea Bears Nation continues to roll. And Reem, it does seem like they've sort of found their footing after that ugly start now that the reinforcements have arrived.
Yeah, I mean, they were on a losing streak, and they got Simi back undefeated with him in the lineup. Jalen Harris making a huge impact as well. So they're off all week, and they're going to BC Friday. But it wasn't looking good for the Sea Bears. So win against the rival Rattlers yesterday. They had a win on Wednesday, and they won Saturday. So 3 in a row. I'm going to pull up the standings for the Sea Bears. And 4-5 now after being, 1-5? So that's a nice little turnaround here. Still room for improvement. As, who they're playing? Vancouver Bandits, who's first in the West at 8-1 on Friday. That is a big test coming up, but sounds like it was a great game there Sunday afternoon.
Did you say that's a road game in Vancouver?
Yeah. Oh, no. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong day. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I looked the other day. Yeah. Friday, June 20 in Vancouver.
Man, you could get out there, see Sea Bears.
Oh, man.
Bandits on Friday, and then Bombers Lions on Saturday?
Yeah. I was talking to someone who was going to the Lions Bomber game Saturday. The weather in Vancouver this week, not good. But you can still go. I was surprised. That was so terrible. But what a weekend for Winnipeg against BC.
And by the way, we had the For the Community for all the Winnipeggers on Coolbet, the bet up. How about that one, Remo? Bombers win, Gold Eyes win, and Sea Bears win.
What? That was a parlay?
That was a parlay Jake put up for us.
Oh, I missed that.
For the WSTers. And it cashed. We were talking about it today on Lock Shop. Shout out to Mark Camp, who was there. So, I'm going to watch some baseball tonight. And, I'm so disappointed. I guess I'll watch a little Raw, maybe catch up on my wrestling content, because there is the NBA Finals tonight. I'll check that out. But I thought, now that WWE moved to Netflix, I'm a Netflix subscriber, Reem.
Yeah.
And you know what's coming out? I thought it was today. It's tomorrow.
What's this?
Trainwreck. Mayor of Mayhem. The Rob Ford movie.
Is it a documentary, or they got an actor playing him?
Oh, good call. I think it's a documentary.
Okay. With the historic, weaves together archival footage and interviews including local journalists. All right. I could be in for that.
I wonder if they'll interview Olivia Gondek.
I don't remember a lot of the names involved in that, but I remember the line that Rob Ford said.
Yeah, that's just why I know Olivia Gondek's not a name.
I remember
Olivia Gondek. Yeah, we'll leave it there. But yes, we'll get a WST review of the Rob Ford movie when it is out. That's going to do it for us, gang. Thanks to everyone that hung out with us. Shout out to you podcast listeners. Again, all you dads, hope you had a great Father's Day. Have a great night and join us tomorrow. Thanks to all the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Enjoy the NBA Finals and whatever else you get up to tonight. And join us tomorrow for a big Tuesday edition before Game 6 of the Cup Final right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.